If you're a Miami sports fan, then there's only one store to go to, and that's Caneswear at Miami Fanwear in Davie. They're your one-stop shop for all your inner Miami CF, Canes, Dolphins, Panthers, and Marlins merchandise. They have hats, t-shirts, game day jerseys, and so much more. Located at 2511 South University Drive in Davie, and open 24/7 online at caneswear.com or innermiamiwear.com. Call them at 954-835-5597. Caneswear, the spot where Inner Miami and all Miami sports fans shop.
The viewpoints, statements, or beliefs expressed on the following program by the host, guests, or callers are not necessarily the opinions of FantasyXS.com, Media Group Inc. ownership, management, sponsors, or website. Time for Canes fans to get what they want. Information, insight, and perspective. It's the Caneswear Miami Hurricanes Report with Manny Navarro. Exclusively on the Big O Radio Show. Here's Big O and insider Manny Navarro.
Right. Yes, sir. It is time to rock and roll, talk a little Canes. And, Manny, I find it so amusing because in this 24-hour news cycle, we end up having fan-driven sites, maybe even some media members that got to keep writing and talking about it. Maybe some talk show hosts that keep talking about it. And then they find a way to try to convince themselves that somehow the Canes have closed the gap. Manny is ready for these kind of moments. The team is ready to take on Alabama, that they're equal in talent, that they're equal in accomplishments, that they're equal in whatever. And then I almost feel like there's a lot of people that are setting themselves up to get their hearts like severely broken on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean it's hope, right? Hope does that every single year. Fans, new season, they look at the roster, they look at stats like the fact that Miami has 184 combined starts on the offensive line, and they think, oh, the offensive line is so much better. They've got all this experience. They look at Alabama and they say, well, it's a new quarterback. Nobody in the backfield has started a game before. They got an issue with their starting tight end who's pissing off Nick Saban. Listen, man, the bottom line is Alabama has more talent. I did the 5-star count. I went through the 2 deep of both teams. Miami's got 1 5-star recruit in their 2 deep, James Williams. Alabama has 11. So that just tells you right off the bat, from a talent perspective, where Alabama is with their 2 deep and where Miami is, and how this is still a process of getting Miami back to the level of talent that a team like Alabama has, where guys leave and guys step in and there's no drop-off.
So how does Miami keep it even competitive? Because, I'll be impressed if they keep it within 20. If they stay within that point spread, I will actually be impressed. I'm kind of expecting a slaughter, to be honest with you. So in this crazy world, let's feed the narrative here of trying to convince ourselves that they even have a shot here. How would they even keep it close?
Well, I think Manny Diaz has to put pressure on Bryce Young. They got to disrupt that Alabama offense. I think if Alabama gets into an easy flow of just handing the ball off and running it behind Evan Neal and some of their big offensive linemen, it's going to be a long day for Miami.
How do they do that with unproven defensive ends?
Yeah.
Walk me through that one, please.
Yeah.
Walk me through the fact that they have no proven pass rushers. Maybe a little bit of Silvera in the middle, but outside of that, and Silvera is not Warren Sapp either, okay? So let's not – and he's not Jerome Brown. And, it's just like tell me, how do you do that without pass rushers?
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. And I think, Manny's whole concept of this defense, and as far as how he was sort of redecorating things and rearranging things, it's the old adage of Jimmy Johnson, right? You take a linebacker, you move him to defensive end, and you let him run after the quarterback. You take a safety, you move him down into the box, you make him a linebacker. Essentially, that's what he did here. He did that with Zach McLeod. He moved him from linebacker to defensive end. He did that with Keontra Smith, moved him from striker to weak side linebacker, which puts him more in the box. And he did that with Amari Carter, brought him down from safety, put him into the – he thinks that they're going to be faster. He thinks that they're deeper. There's more guys on the defensive line who could be a part of this rotation and help. That's the way he's approaching things. And I think, you are going to see him be more aggressive than Blake Baker was as far as blitzes with his linebackers. I think he's got no choice. You're going to see Keontra Smith blitz the quarterback a ton. I think you're going to see Amari Carter go after the quarterback a ton. That's their hope in this game, is disrupt Alabama's offense enough with a young quarterback and some, relatively inexperienced running backs, and shake them up so that you can keep yourself in the game in the fourth quarter. But it all starts with stopping the run. And if those defensive tackles don't show up and play like, third, fourth, and fifth year players that they are, then, it's going to be a long day for Miami.
Yeah, that is a key. And that at least is what we think is a strength of this team, with those guys up the middle. But the outside linebackers, the defensive ends, those guys, we don't know how they can actually hold up also in the edges. So even if Silvera and the boys can do their job in the middle, they're going to be able to test the outsides too at the same time. Because while we talk about them being untested and unproven as pass rushers, they're also untested and unproven at holding the point too on the outside. Yeah,
and that was the issue last year. You go back and you look at that North Carolina tape, and it was just their running backs were getting into the hole a lot faster than Miami was, and just exposing the defense. And so, you got to hope that between Jess Simpson, the new defensive line coach, and what Manny has brought as far as being the guy in the defensive room again, where he's really leading it, he's calling the plays, that's enough to make them a whole lot better than we saw at the end of last season. Because personnel-wise, I mean, it's still the same players. It's still the same guys pretty much. So it's execution and how they go about attacking things.
What kind of heat does Manny get if they get embarrassed against Alabama? Because I know realistically we're all expecting, most of us that are realistic are expecting a loss. But like I told you, you got a part of this fan base is kind of convincing themselves that they can be competitive, that they can actually beat Alabama, all of that stuff. So what kind of heat is Manny facing if there is an embarrassing performance, not a respectable performance? Because I think people will have a little bit more understanding then. But if it is one of those thrashings, what kind of pressure does he get? What kind of heat does he get from the public?
Yeah, I think without question, I mean, people are going to be really disappointed because, Manny's forte is defense, right? That's what he's supposed to be good at. And he put this pressure on himself by making himself defensive coordinator. So if the defense comes out and looks horrible, then I think immediately, the hot seat discussion comes into play, right? It's how quickly can we get rid of Manny and how quickly can we bring in somebody else? Because here's part of the deal. If they get embarrassed by Alabama, he's not going to get fired. If they go 8-4 this year, he's not going to get fired. But the recruiting class is going to fall apart. And the guys that are part of fixing this future are going to say it's the same old Miami. So that's why this game is important. If you show up and you hang with Alabama, even if you don't win, at least you show all these high school kids, hey, look what we've done. We were losing to Duke, FIU, and Louisiana Tech 3 years ago. Now we're hanging with the best team in college football that's 80-6 over the last 6 years. So that's what it's about. It's all about image and how these kids respond to it. And so I think there's a lot to gain and there's a lot to lose with this game.
That's a great point, man. I didn't even think about that. The long-term effects of this, the periphery of this game and what it could mean, because in the end, all these guys want to win, and they, I think also we're at a point where are players getting to the NFL because they're talented, or are they getting properly developed here to be the best that they can possibly be? So they even go higher in the draft. You know what I'm saying? Right. Whereas guys, when they left here, they were NFL prepared. I don't know if that's the case anymore with University of Miami football players. Are they NFL prepared when they get out of here anymore?
Yeah. I mean, look, you have two decent stories here, right? For Miami in the NFL this year. You have Gregory Rousseau and you have Jalen Phillips, two guys. I mean, Gregory came here. He was a 3-star recruit, probably under-recruited by a lot of the elite teams. Manny had the vision to see, hey, this guy's not a safety or wide receiver. He's a defensive end. And he convinced him to play defensive and he developed him. So that's a feather in Manny's cap. And then you look at a guy like Jalen Phillips, who everybody in the country wanted, got injured, and had to resurrect his career here, and he did. So you have two good examples at least now going into this NFL season, but they need more of those examples. Though they need more guys who get to the NFL and aren't just sort of journeymen or guys who might start a few games. They need some premier guys now. I mean, all of their Pro Bowlers are basically retiring. Frank Gore is done, right? You've basically got Calais Campbell carrying the flag for Miami, and he's in his 13th year.
So Greg Olsen, another Hall of Fame type candidate, also just retired too.
Jimmy Graham's at the end of his rope, right? I mean, there's another hurricane. So, for years and years and years, we've sat here and we're like, oh man, yeah, maybe the Canes aren't winning, but look at all these guys in the NFL that are still having good careers. I think it's important. You bring up a good point. These guys need some current, fresh NFL examples so that they can go to recruits and say, look what we did for Gregory So. Look what we did for Jalen Phillips. Look what we did for Quincy Roche, who transferred to us. Maybe he doesn't get drafted out of Temple, but he comes to us and now he's got a roster spot with the Steelers or whatever. So you need more of those sort of examples. And I think, when you look at some of these players that are seniors now or guys that are going to go into the NFL next year, Bubba Bolden is another example. I think he's the guy who gets drafted. If he turns the corner and goes from being, average to above average and gets drafted and has a good NFL career, that's another example. So there's some guys, Tyreek Stevenson, who transferred in from Georgia. If they all get to that next level, then Manny's got this thing going in the right direction.
All right. Manny Navarro, of course, joining us. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Manny_Navarro. For those of you listening on the podcast. And, of course, visit our friends at Caneswear. Call them 954-835-5597. All orders over $99. Go to Caneswear.com. You will get free shipping. Go out there and remember, we'll be out there tomorrow broadcasting live at Caneswear. So we'll be out there tomorrow having some fun starting off at 10 a.m. So please join us. And 9 a.m. Well, we'll be out there really early because Inside the Paint will start off at 9 a.m. So I just realized that. Holy crap, what a day. Anyway, all right. So Avante Williams, he gets, yes. I'm not a fan of this move. I think it sends a terrible message when it's all said and done. What are the justifications? I mean, just hiding behind the technicalities, that's enough for them? Is it also, and I know that the way the dirty ass business, were they that concerned that North Carolina or Clemson or somebody else was going to scoop in and pick him up also and give him a chance? The same thing that the University of Miami is doing now. Was there a couple of other Division I teams lined up ready to do it for him also?
Yeah, I think without question there were teams very interested, ready to scoop him up. Because you got to remember, we're prisoners of the moment, right? Down here in Miami, this is a story. In North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, nobody cares. Nobody's paying attention down here to the fact that this guy had the charges dropped. And they're not going to go back and read the police reports to see what really happened, or at least what happened at first before the story changed.
Right.
So I think without question that played a role. Listen, I asked Manny Diaz the question. I put some heat on UM for not coming out and getting in front of this story in one of my articles last week, saying, this is an important issue that you need to address and not just sort of hide behind. And so they put out a statement over the weekend. Then, I asked Manny yesterday during the press conference about it. And, I still don't know that we really have a clear answer other than things changed. The charges were dropped and Miami took them back. And so that's it. That's where they're leaving it. There's no new information that all of a sudden made them, regret their decision. According to Manny, if they had to do it all over again, they would have done it the same way. So what was his response to me. So,
what else is he going to say?
Right. What else is he going to say? So look, the bottom line is,
I just hope he doesn't turn into Willie Williams.
Right.
Where you go through all this crap and then he's an idiot anyway. I hope he actually, whatever mistake he made, I hope he corrects it. I hope he never makes that mistake again. And then I hope he does become a really good player for them, because to go through all of this, to get embarrassed again like they did with
Yeah.
Willie Williams, that would be really tough for them to swallow. And then you're really going to have Manny Diaz, you
Right.
know what I'm saying? Because he's not going to have anything he can't feed you any bullshit, because it's going to look like complete bullshit.
Yeah. Well, look, they're making him sit the first 6 games, and I loved how Manny I loved how Manny sort of danced around it, not necessarily blaming the kid for what happened, saying more, well, he missed camp anyway. We can't rush him back. Look, the bottom line is if you're saying he's going to miss the first 6 games, you sort of believe the first police report, and you know that this guy doesn't have clean hands. But it's an important game to play for Manny, because recruits are paying attention to this, right? They're seeing, hey, is this guy have my back? So it's a double-edged sword there for Manny. He needs to win. And in the end, this guy got off with no charges. Without having to pay a price for what happened, really, with police. So he'll get a second chance, and Manny's got to ride with it. And hopefully, like you said, Avante Williams doesn't make another stupid mistake.
Let's hope so. Injury-wise, anything that as fans should be concerned about going into the Alabama game? Any knowledge of any injuries?
Yeah, well, I asked Manny about the 3 guys who were out for the season. 2 of them really, they're freshmen, guys that weren't going to play anyway. Brian Balaam at safety, he might have been a guy that saw some snaps. John Campbell, who we knew earlier in camp, he's out for the year as well. So you're short an offensive tackle, you're short a safety, but Miami's deep at both of those positions. So it's not something that you're panicking over. And then, really Sam Brooks Jr., he's going to be out the first week. He's a guy that you were really hoping would come back from injury and perform well and help you at that linebacker spot. And that's part of the reason why I'm nervous about that linebacker spot, because you still have Bradley Jennings Jr. and Wayman Steed, 2 guys who shouldn't really be in the rotation in my mind. They're going to be the backups going into this game. And so part of that is Sam Brooks not getting healthy, completely healthy over that toe injury that's been bothering him for the last year. And then Avery Huff not developing. That's the guy that they were really high on, 4-star recruit out of St. Thomas Aquinas, and yet he's not on the depth chart. So, that's why I'm nervous about linebacker. That's why there's a real reason to be nervous about linebacker.
So what's your prediction for this season? What do you have in the win-loss column there, my man?
Yeah, I think offensively they're still going to be very, very good with De'Ara King. I really like the receivers. I think they're much deeper there. Mark Pope didn't even make the 2 deep, right? He was a guy you had to play last year. Now he's not even on the 2 deep. I really like Charleston Rambo and Harley and Keyshawn Smith. I think their starting receivers are excellent. I think they're going to have good backups. Will Mallory, Elijah Arroyo. They've got guys that he can throw the football to, and I think they're going to be better at running the ball. So I think offensively, this is a team that could average close to 40 points a game, just not against Alabama and elite defenses. But everybody else, they could score 40, 50 points a game because they've got that kind of offense. So to me, I got them winning 10 games, whether that's including the bowl or not. I think they'll hit the 10-win mark. I don't think that they're necessarily going to go to the ACC championship game. I still think North Carolina is better than they are. I think Mac Brown's got Manny's number, and North Carolina has them at home. So
you got two losses, is what you're saying.
2 losses, and then we'll see what happens in the bowl game, right? Who they get matched up with, who sits out. That's always the unknown now. It's who's going to play in the bowl game.
Is it a successful season if you lose to North Carolina?
Well, I think people are going to be upset because they want them to win division and play Clemson, right?
Because they lost all their guys on offense. Yeah. I know they got the badass quarterback, but he lost all.
Well, and they got the whole starting offensive line back. Their offensive line was good. So
okay, yeah, but you lost your weapons. So, and you have 19 of 22 back. If you can't beat North Carolina now, to me that's that. See, I don't care about the Alabama game. I'm fine. I can deal with the loss, even if it's an ass-kicking, whatever. But if you can run the table on the rest of the games, then I know you're headed in the right direction. If you lose to North Carolina, man, I'm just going to go same old Canes.
Right.
What I'm going to do.
It could very well be that way. They could beat North Carolina and then lose to somebody else. I mean, NC State's a good team.
Oh yeah, no, I know.
I mean, there's some good teams.
That is same old Miami too, by the way.
Right.
You know?
Right. Well, I think 10 wins at least sends the message to recruits that we got better from last year. Look at our offense, right? Those guys put up good numbers, and things are heading in the right direction. And to me, that's what Manny needs. Manny needs momentum. This Miami team needs momentum. Go back to Al Golden, go back to Randy Shannon, even Richt, right? After that 10-win season, the next year they come back and they're terrible.
Right.
So Manny needs to stack 8 wins, 10 wins, top 15 recruiting class, top 15 recruiting class, top 15 recruiting. When you do that, that's how you escape mediocrity.
Follow him on Twitter at Manny_Navarro. Catch his work there at The Athletic as always, and support our great friends at Caneswear. Go to caneswear.com or visit them at 2511 South University Drive in Davie. We'll be there tomorrow morning, rocking and rolling. Manny, thank you, my brother. I appreciate you immensely.
Anytime, brother. You have a good one.
You got it.
If you're a Miami sports fan, then there's only one store to go to, and that's Caneswear at Miami Fanwear in Davie. They're your one-stop shop for all your inner Miami CF, Canes, Dolphins, Panthers, and Marlins merchandise. They have hats, t-shirts, game day jerseys, and so much more. Located at 2511 South University Drive in Davie, and open 24/7 online at caneswear.com or innermiamiwear.com. Call them at 954-835-5597. Caneswear, the spot where inner Miami and all Miami sports fans shop.